Have you ever experienced that subtle, almost imperceptible sensation that arises when an interaction shifts from genuine exchange to covert orchestration? It is a feeling that beneath a veneer of innocent inquiries or ostensibly helpful suggestions, there exists a calculated current, a deliberate attempt to guide your thoughts, feelings, or actions toward an endpoint chosen not by you, but by another. For the majority, this sensation flits by unnoticed, a faint whisper drowned out by the clamor of social nicety and the default setting of trust. They consume the proffered bait, they follow the strategically placed breadcrumbs, and they arrive, often bewildered, at a destination architected by someone else, never fully comprehending the invisible hands that steered their journey. But you perceive the whisper. You detect the faint shift in atmospheric pressure that precedes a storm of influence. And in the moment of that recognition, a profound internal mechanism engages, a definitive, almost hydraulic shutting of gates. Your engagement ceases, your psychic and emotional energies retract. To the outside observer, you have simply become distant, disinterested, or uncooperative. The individual attempting to wield influence is left perplexed, their well-rehearsed tactics meeting only empty air, their usual levers and pulleys finding nothing to connect with, no purchase on your psyche. If this dynamic resonates with the core of your being, you likely embody what has been termed the Sigma archetype. What follows is a detailed exegesis of the 10 behavioral and cognitive habits of autonomy. These are not manipulative countertricks or techniques of subterfuge. They are the natural, emergent traits of a psyche that has prioritized internal sovereignty above external harmony. They function as a comprehensive defense system, automatically deactivating the strategies of those who would seek to push, pull, or steer you. To understand them is to understand why your mere presence, your unwavering stance, can quietly unsettle the very individuals who never managed to lay a hand upon you. 1. The strategic exit, withdrawing at the first flicker of discrepancy. The overwhelming majority of successful influence campaigns, from the mundane to the malicious, share a single critical precondition. The target remains engaged beyond the point of initial intuitive warning. Studies and anecdotal evidence consistently suggest that over 80% of individuals report having felt an early, gut-level sense that something was off in a situation that later proved problematic. Yet, they dismissed the signal. They stayed in the conversation, offered the benefit of the doubt, asked for clarifications, and granted second chances. That additional window of engagement, those extra minutes, hours, or days of exposure, provides the would-be manipulator with the essential resource they need: time. Time to weave rapport, to normalize small boundary transgressions, to establish a sequence of incremental commitments that culminate in significant compliance. The Sigma individual does not grant this currency of time. This is not a function of innate paranoia or antisocial inclination. It is, rather, a refined and efficient threat detection protocol wired into their nervous system. When that familiar off feeling emerges, it is not dismissed as irrational anxiety. It is recognized as a conscious surfacing of a subconscious pattern-matching process. This internal supercomputer runs continuously in the background, cross-referencing the present interaction, its tonal cadences, its logical consistency, its energy, its unspoken assumptions, against a vast historical database of lived experience. It is detecting an anomaly, a misalignment between what is being presented and the deep structure patterns of authentic, non-manipulative interaction. 2. The irrelevance of external praise, a foundation of self-validation. Flattery is perhaps the oldest and most ubiquitous tool in the influencer's kit. The mechanism is simple and profoundly effective on a species wide for social belonging. You offer targeted praise that inflates the target's ego, making them feel seen, admired, and elevated. Once they are psychologically riding this wave of positive regard, they become remarkably pliable. A request made in this context is often granted, not necessarily because the request is sound, but because the individual wishes to maintain the pleasurable social mirror you have held up for them. They comply to avoid disappointing their newfound benefactor. This is transactional validation, praise exchange for compliance. This tactic thrives on a specific vulnerability, a hunger for external validation. In a culture that often ties self-worth to achievement, appearance, and social status, many operate from a deficit, constantly seeking external confirmation to feel okay. The Sigma, by contrast, operates from a position of psychic satiation. This is not arrogance, a grandiose overinflation of self-worth, but rather a quiet, steady self-validation. They have undertaken the internal labor required to assess their own competences, acknowledge their flaws, and anchor their sense of worth in an internal ledger, not a public opinion poll. They know what they are capable of. They have a measured understanding of their own value. Your verbal affirmation of these facts is, therefore, redundant. Consequently, when flattery is deployed, it does not land with its intended emotional payload. Instead, it feels dissonant, odd, even suspect. The overture is perceived as effortful, and that effort implies an agenda. The fleeting pleasure of the compliment is instantly overridden by a cognitive alert. Why is this person expending energy to tell me this? What do they want? The emotional hook, designed to snag a need for approval, finds nothing to hook into. 3. The verification imperative. Trust must be owned, not granted. Social efficiency is built upon a default setting of trust. In everyday interactions, we accept what people tell us is true unless we have an immediate, glaring reason to doubt. To do otherwise, to question every statement, would make conversation impossibly burdensome. This social contract of presumptive truthfulness is a lubricant of human interaction. However, it also represents a critical vulnerability. The manipulator or opportunist injects a faucet into the stream of presumed truth. The target, operating on default trust, accepts it. The manipulator then layers further assertions, requests, or narratives upon this now accepted false foundation. Before long, the target is making significant decisions based on a reality that is, in fact, a carefully constructed fiction. The Sigma personality opt-outs of this default trust protocol. This is not paranoia, but a pragmatic acknowledgement of a fundamental truth. Human beings are fallible communicators. People lie, exaggerate, omit, misunderstand, and pass on unverified information. Therefore, any information originating from a human source is treated as provisionally suspect until it can be independently corroborated. Before acting on advice, a claim, or a presented fact, the Sigma engages in verification. They seek primary sources, look for tangible data, cross-reference claims against known evidence, and consult alternative perspectives. Only after this independent confirmation does the information graduate from the category of claim to reliable data. 4. Emotional neutrality under social pressure testing. A primary method of mapping a person's psychological landscape for future leverage is emotional pressure testing. An individual will deliberately provoke an emotional response through a veiled insult, an exaggerated challenge, an overload of praise, or pointed criticism to observe the reaction. That reaction is invaluable data. Anger reveals a trigger point and a potential lever for future agitation. Defensiveness exposes an insecurity. Eagerness for praise highlights a pathway for flattery. Each emotional spike is a point plotted on a map of vulnerabilities. Once the map is sufficiently detailed, it can be used to navigate the individual toward desired outcomes. When this testing is applied to a Sigma, the map remains blank. Confronted with obvious provocation or testing, the Sigma's external presentation often shifts to a state of practiced neutrality. This is not coldness or hostility, but a deliberate, calm flatness, the emotional equivalent of a featureless, energy-absorbing wall. Crucially, this is frequently not a conscious act in the moment. It is a behavioral output of a psyche that processes social aggression differently. The Sigma feels a provocation, the sting of an insult, the flush of irritation, but there is a powerful internal disconnect between feeling the emotion and expressing it. 5. Operative secrecy, the power of silent execution. There is a powerful social ritual surrounding ambition, the announcement. I'm going to write a book. I'm starting a business. I'm training for a marathon. We share our intentions with friends, family, colleagues. The benefits seem clear. We receive encouragement, moral support, and a sense of early momentum. We feel accountable, which we believe will motivate us. However, this ritual creates a potent form of social pressure. Once announced, your project exists in the public eye. People will ask for progress reports. They will offer, often unsolicited, advice. They will watch. This external gaze transforms a personal endeavor into a semi-public performance. For many, this pressure becomes paralyzing rather than motivating. The fear of public failure can stifle the risk-taking necessary for success. The Sigma sidesteps this ritual entirely. Their modus operandi is silent, private execution. They do not announce. They act. They research in private, practice in solitude, build in secrecy. The world remains unaware of the project until it is either completed or has reached a stage of undeniable, tangible progress. Then, and only then, is it revealed, not as a future intention, but as a fait accompli or work in formidable progress. The common bewildered response, "When did you have time to do that?" is met with the simple, truthful answer, "I've been working on it." This habit provides a robust defense against a particularly pernicious form of interference, sabotage, both intentional and unconscious. When others are aware of your plans, they can interfere. Sometimes this is malicious. A rival may try to copy your idea or undermine your efforts. More often, it is unconscious and well-meaning. The friend who, upon hearing your business idea, immediately lists 10 reasons it will fail, projecting their own fears onto your ambition. That single conversation, that seed of doubt planted by someone you respect, can be enough to kill an idea in its infancy. If the idea is never voiced, it is protected from this external negativity. 6. The deceleration principle, resisting the tyranny of false urgency. Act now. Limited time offer. Only one left. These are the clarion calls of artificial urgency, a cornerstone of manipulation. The psychological objective is to trigger a fear of missing out, FOMO, that overrides a deliberative, rational mind. When you believe time is scarce, you shortcut your normal decision-making processes. You skip due diligence, ignore nagging doubts, and commit to avoid the perceived pain of loss. This panic button is ruthlessly exploited in sales, negotiations, and even personal relationships. The Sigma possesses a keen detector for fake urgency. Their reflexive response to any pressure to decide quickly is a conscious, deliberate deceleration. The more they are pushed, the slower they deliberately become. This is not obstinacy, but a core principle of self-protection. Rushed decisions are statistically poor decisions. The consequences of a bad choice, a predatory contract, a dubious investment, an ill-considered commitment, will long outlast the artificial deadline used to force it. The power of this habit lies in a simple truth. Genuine, can't-miss urgency is exceptionally rare in life. Most last chances are fabrications. The limited stock will be replenished. The tonight-only price will be available again next month. There's almost always another opportunity, another deal, another option. The manipulator's leverage depends entirely on your belief that this is the only one. The moment you call that bluff by refusing to accelerate your decision-making timeline, the leverage evaporates. 7. The primacy of behavior, decoding actions, discounting words. Language is cheap. It costs little in terms of calories or effort to produce reassuring statements. "I've got your back. You can trust me. I would never do that." Societal functioning relies on a baseline of taking such statements at face value. We operate on a system of verbal credit. The fatal flaw in this system is that by the time someone's actions reveal their words to be false, significant damage may already be done. The Sigma inverts this paradigm. For them, words become background noise, while behavior is elevated to primary text. This is because behavior is expensive. It requires investment of time, energy, and often sacrifice. Behavior reveals authentic priorities and values, regardless of the narrative being verbally espoused. Someone who speaks endlessly about integrity but cuts corners in practice is, behaviorally, someone who values convenience over integrity. Someone who professes loyalty but is absent in a crisis is, behaviorally, disloyal. The Sigma learns to read this behavioral text with fluency. This pattern develops from repeated observation of the disconnect between rhetoric and reality. They have seen smooth talkers betray promises. They have experienced the hollowness of unsupported words. Consequently, they develop profound trust in the pattern of actions over time. They mentally log who follows through, who is consistent, who shows up when it matters. This behavioral data forms the only reliable predictor of future conduct. Verbal assurances are noted but are given negligible weight unless and until they are ratified by congruent action. 8. The economy of explanation. Why no is a complete sentence. A deeply ingrained social norm dictates that when you make a choice that others question or dislike, you owe them an explanation. We feel compelled to justify our no, to rationalize our departure, to make our reasoning transparent. This sense of obligation is a potent lever for manipulators. They demand explanations not to understand, but to deconstruct. They challenge your reasons, poke holes in your logic, and debate your premises. By engaging in this justification, you inadvertently transform your final decision into an opening bid in a negotiation you never agreed to host. The act of defending a position implies it is still debatable. The Sigma practices a radical economy of explanation. They do not explain their decisions to people who are not directly and materially impacted by them. This is not inherent rudeness, but a strategic recognition that explaining is often a trap. The person asking why is rarely seeking information for understanding. They are seeking a point of entry to apply leverage. They want to find the flaw in your reasoning so they can attempt to change your mind. By offering no reasoning, you offer no leverage. This habit neutralizes a vast array of coercive tactics. Guilt trips, emotional blackmail, and social shaming all require your engagement to function. They need you to feel the weight of the other person's disappointment or confusion. They need you to step onto the battlefield of justification. If you calmly and politely refuse to enter that arena, if you let your no or your decision stand without accompanying argumentation, the tactics were ineffectually an empty space. The manipulator may escalate, demanding, "But why won't you?" Your continued silence or simple repetition of your stance, "My decision is made," places the discomfort of the situation squarely back with them. Their discomfort with your boundary is not your problem to solve. 9. The Socratic filter, exposing inconsistency through calm inquiry. Human beings are narrative creatures. We respond powerfully to stories, especially those that are emotionally compelling. The manipulator is often a skilled storyteller, crafting a narrative designed to elicit a specific response: sympathy, trust, outrage, desire. The default setting for most is to accept a plausible, emotionally engaging story, particularly if it comes from a seemingly credible source. The Sigma does not accept narratives. They test them. Their method is not aggressive interrogation, but a calm, persistent, almost Socratic line of questioning. Someone presents a story, an excuse, or a justification. The Sigma responds with a neutral, clarifying question. Then another, and another. The goal is not to accuse, but to observe whether the narrative maintains its structural integrity under mild, logical pressure. Falsehoods are designed to sound convincing, not to be consistent under scrutiny. As details are requested, timelines examined, and motivations explored, cracks begin to appear. Contradictions emerge. The storyteller, if operating in bad faith, begins to falter, become defensive, or angrily question the questioner. 10. The non-negotiable core, walking away as a position of strength. Conventional negotiation often operates from a mindset of scarcity and fear. The fear of losing the deal, the job, the relationship, the opportunity. This fear creates a weak negotiating position, leading individuals to accept unfavorable terms, lower their standards, and compromise their boundaries. The other party senses this fear and presses their advantage, knowing that something is better than nothing. Psychology will usually lead to concession. The Sigma negotiates from a mindset of clarity and abundance. This abundance is not necessarily a belief in infinite external options, but an internal abundance of self-respect and predefined standards. Before entering any negotiation or agreement, they have clearly established their non-negotiable terms, the minimum acceptable salary, the essential boundary, the core principle. These terms are not flexible. Any proposal that fails to meet these baseline requirements is met with an automatic, non-emotional no. They are perfectly willing to lose a deal, the job, the relationship if it requires violating their core terms. Their reasoning is impeccably logical. A bad deal is more costly than no deal. A compromise that erodes your foundation is a Pyrrhic victory. This unwavering clarity provides a formidable advantage. While others become emotionally attached to the outcome, getting the job, closing the sale, the Sigma remains attached to the terms. Because their standards are immovable, the other party quickly learns that the only possible agreement is one that aligns with those standards. Consider salary negotiation. A Sigma enters with a minimum number based on their worth and needs. If the offer is below it, they decline. The employer may attempt standard pressure tactics. Market rate is lower. Other candidates would accept this. The Sigma remains unmoved. Their number is their number. Often, this very willingness to walk away, devoid of bluff or drama, communicates supreme confidence. In a significant number of cases, the other party, recognizing they are dealing with someone who is not desperate, returns with an improved offer that meets a standard. Conclusion: the integrated defense system. Individually, each of these 10 habits represent a robust defense against a particular family of influence tactics. Collectively, they form a comprehensive, self-reinforcing psychological immune system against manipulation. They do not make the Sigma invulnerable. No human is, but they raise the cost of manipulation to a point that exceeds a potential reward for all but the most dedicated and skilled operators. The flatterer finds no hunger for praise. The urgency merchant finds a deliberate pace. The guilt tripper finds no one to receive the guilt. The liar finds a skeptical auditor. The bully finds no emotional reaction. Manipulators, at their core, are efficiency seekers. They desire maximum return for minimal effort. The Sigma personality, through these innate or cultivated habits, presents a target of high effort and uncertain return. Faced with this, the manipulator's most common and rational response is to disengage and redirect their energies toward more susceptible targets, those who stay in conversations they should leave, who crave external validation, who trust by default, and who fear walking away from a bad deal. Therefore, the occasional resentment or labeling you may encounter is not a sign of your failure to connect, but a testament to the effectiveness of your autonomous architecture. It is the sound of a key turning in a lock that cannot be picked, of a door that cannot be forced. In a world saturated with attempts to direct attention, sway opinion, and extract compliance, these habits of the Sigma are not merely personal idiosyncrasies. They are the pillars of quiet, unassailable sovereignty. Do these ideas resonate with you? If you found yourself nodding along or reflecting deeply on the traits and experiences we explored in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Sigma male mindset isn't often talked about openly, and your perspective, whether you identify with it personally or have encountered it in others, adds valuable depth to the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know. Which part hit home the most for you? Have you seen these traits in yourself or someone you know? Your insights help build a community where authenticity and growth are prioritized over popularity and performance. If you're drawn to this kind of introspective, no-nonsense content around Sigma males, psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and high-value living, there's more waiting for you. Explore the other videos on this channel for deeper dives, actionable insights, and raw truths that cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay unapologetically real. Until next time.